Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, October 20th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Businesses and local leaders are breathing a sigh of relief. San Diego County just barely escaped moving into the most restrictive purple tier. Today, 4 more deaths and 265 new COVID-19 cases were reported in our region. The California Health and Human Services Secretary also laid out guidelines for theme parks to reopen. But as KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman explains, the state's biggest attractions won't be welcoming back visitors anytime soon.
They're hovering between that sort of fine line, and we're working closely with them to make sure that the data is right.
San Diego County is not heading toward more coronavirus restrictions.
The adjusted case rate actually has been adjusted down. They did meet thresholds, so they do not have 1 week in the purple tier.
San Diego is currently in the state's red tier, or the second most restrictive. It would take 2 weeks of purple data to see indoor operations for some businesses close again. But right now, we're staying where we are for at least the next 2 weeks.
Each week we sort of walk in and wonder whether we're going to be, which side of the threshold that we're going to be on.
Today, the state issued guidance that will allow some theme parks and sports venues to once again reopen.
And these smaller theme parks can resume operations in Tier 3 or orange tier. These will be limited in capacity up to 25% or 500 visitors.
That could apply to Belmont Park and Mission Beach, but under state coronavirus guidelines, San Diego County has not reached the less restrictive orange tier yet, and larger theme parks like SeaWorld and Legoland can only see rides reopen in the yellow tier.
We don't have the crystal ball. I don't know when Orange County or San Diego County will indeed enter yellow.
In a statement, the president of Legoland California Resort in Carlsbad says the new guidance is arbitrary and unacceptable to the industry, and not allowing theme parks to reopen until the yellow tier will cost thousands of jobs.
There is a path forward there. We do not know when, but we do know how.
Just last week, county health officials said coronavirus numbers were trending unusually high, and they're asking residents to follow public health orders to try and bring down future numbers in the hopes of avoiding more restrictions.
What we're fighting for here is obviously to slow the spread, not just to save lives, but also to maintain our current status with what is open.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The Vista Unified School District started in-person learning for all grade levels today. Teachers and parents rallied last week against the reopening plan before a school board meeting. They say the district has not provided enough protective equipment to prevent the spread of COVID-19. District officials say they've spent millions on PPE.
The problem is that it's just not equitable throughout the district. What some classrooms have, other classrooms don't have, and we just want the safety the same for all of our members and all of our students.
District officials say they've spent millions on PPE. More than half of U.S. states are reporting a rise in new infections in what some say is the dreaded fall surge. Health experts attributing multiple factors to the rise, including pandemic fatigue, ignoring health guidance, and the reopening of schools. Camila Bernal has more.
COVID-19 numbers once again climbing back up across the country.
The numbers are moving in the wrong direction.
The U.S. has now topped 220,000 COVID deaths, a number some experts worry may also begin to climb faster.
At the very least, assume everyone you come in contact with is asymptomatically infected and contagious. Assume that, and then wear masks and social distance.
Hospitalizations also on the rise, with at least 14 states reporting peak hospitalization numbers in the last week. And it could get worse.
Over the next 5 or 6 months, I think up through February or March of next year, we are heading into the worst part of this pandemic for this country.
And as the holidays approach, many doctors asking people to be extra careful.
Avoiding large gatherings of families, because we've seen a lot of family transmission.
Meanwhile, the NIH director says we may have to wait longer for a vaccine.
I would think it's very unlikely, given the timetables and the standards that have to be followed, that you will hear about an emergency use authorization before late November at the earliest.
But even once a vaccine is available, public trust remains a question.
Public health entirely hinges on public trust, and specifically trust in our top government scientists.
Camila Bernal, KPBS News.
UC San Diego computer scientists are using data from resources like the Johns Hopkins database to make predictions about the coronavirus. They've created a database that pairs COVID statistics with travel data to predict deaths and cases weeks from now. That could help public health officials answer questions such as how many hospital beds, ventilators, and health workers a county needs.
In order to make these decisions, they need to know, like, beforehand, like, for example, how many, deaths or hospitalization or infections a certain county will get, right, in the coming 4 weeks, for instance.
The database has been incorporated into the Centers for Disease Control website. It's being used by Governor Newsom and others to inform their COVID policies. Researchers say the project will continue to evolve as the pandemic goes on. San Diego voters are seeing ads claiming that mayoral candidate Todd Gloria supports sex offenders. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Tregeser dug into the origin of this baseless claim.
The texts and social media posts come from conservative radio talk show host Carl DeMaio. One says Todd Gloria, quote, put our kids at risk by voting to shield sex offenders.
Statement in the text and in the voicemail is false.
Gloria says they're referring to his vote in support of SB 145. The new law sets the same rules for oral and anal sex as vaginal sex when judges decide whether an adult must register as a sex offender. The bill was endorsed by victims' rights and law enforcement groups, and Gloria says he stands by his vote, even though it's led to Facebook posts like this one from DeMaio. The post simply says, Todd Gloria supports sex offenders, with a picture of Gloria appearing to wear a skin-tight shirt.
That was from a Pride parade a couple of years ago when we had a famous rainstorm come in and disrupt the parade. And the community still marched, by the thousands, because our pride for our accomplishments as a community couldn't be dampened by a rainstorm. And so it's, particularly, I think, intentionally piercing to try and take a moment of some community solidarity and then overlay it onto this patently homophobic and false allegation.
Gloria is openly gay, as is DeMaio. DeMaio did not respond to requests for comment from KPBS. Gloria's opponent, Barbara Bree, was asked in a recent KPBS mayoral debate whether she disavows these attack ads.
And of course, you have acknowledged you didn't create these attacks, but do you condemn them?
I condemn any information that is inaccurate that goes out into the public.
Bree also posted on Twitter that DeMaio was attacking Gloria because of a long-standing feud between them. But Gloria says he doesn't know what that feud is.
That terminology, and I almost feel like that had to have been coordinated with the disc jockey because, listen, we served on the city council for 4 years. We voted very differently. But the term feud is fairly laughable.
An independent group supporting Gloria also recently sent out mailers about Bree. Mailers calling Bree, quote, the Republican choice for mayor went to Democratic households, and mailers hailing Bree as progressive went to Republican households. Bree has called those mailers deceptive. Claire Tregeser, KPBS News.
The San Diego City Council today officially designated a portion of Kearny Mesa as a Pan-Asian cultural and business district. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the area is expected to grow.
Convoy Street in Kearny Mesa has been the heart of San Diego's Asian American communities for decades. City Council member Chris Cate, who represents the area, says the new designation allows the Convoy District to further brand itself as a hub for business and culture.
Which will help support the efforts on the part of many organizations and businesses to transform the Convoy area into a vibrant cultural center, dining destination, and innovative economic hub.
Lauren Garces of the nonprofit Convoy District Partnership says the neighborhood's business owners and entrepreneurs have already attracted outdoor murals, special events, and startup companies.
And in the future, we want to see it blossom and thrive into an economic and residential hub that all of San Diego can be proud of.
Later this year, the City Council is expected to vote on an update to the Kearny Mesa Community Plan. That update envisions a big increase in population, allowing for nearly 6 times the number of homes than the neighborhood has right now. Homes for future potential customers of the Convoy District. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The clock is ticking on unclaimed money at the Treasurer Tax Collector's office. County residents have 6 more days to claim more than $350,000 in refunds before the money enters the general fund.
With cash being a little bit more scarce than it was before, people still without jobs, those kinds of things. All of a sudden, we had somebody come in last week, $450 they were owed. That can go a long way for a family. That could go a long way for somebody who's not working. And so I encourage people to look at the internet, look it up on our website, and find their name and claim that money.
Under current state law, money that is unclaimed for 3 years and property tax refunds that are unclaimed for 4 years must be absorbed into the county's general fund. You can visit the website and do a search to see if your name is linked to one of almost 1,200 refunds that are still unclaimed. The average refund is $378, and the deadline is October 26th. We are 2 weeks out from Election Day. President Trump traveled to Pennsylvania today to rally his base and reach out to undecided voters. But as Daryl Forges explains, now that tens of millions of Americans have already cast ballots, time may be running out to influence the race.
President Trump predicts victory.
We're doing very well. We're going to win the election.
But an average of polls from key battleground states suggests a tight race between the president and Democratic challenger Joe Biden.
The numbers at the polls are looking really good, really, really good.
In Iowa, Georgia, Ohio, North Carolina, and Florida, Biden and the president are neck and neck.
You have a president who has been underwater since the day he took office. And so this is very much a referendum on him and his performance.
In parts of the Rust Belt, like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, polling averages show Biden holding the support of a majority of voters.
Those comparative numbers between Biden and Trump, they're not that different than the numbers 4 years ago between Trump and Hillary Clinton. And yet Trump still came out ahead.
Which is why President Trump is in the midst of a swing state sprint, spending time in Pennsylvania after a divided Supreme Court ruled that mail-in ballots will be counted if they are received up to 3 days after Election Day, even if the ballots do not have a legible postmark.
We're going to wait till after November 3rd and start announcing states. It's crazy. But we got a strange ruling from the Supreme Court.
Donald Trump has recklessly been trying to sow doubt in this process and limit the voices of the people of Pennsylvania. And what this assures is that they'll count.
The ruling could set the tone for other pre-election challenges. It also all but confirms we may not know the winner of the presidential race on Election Day. In Washington, I'm Daryl Forges.
Poway voters will be asked to decide the fate of a defunct country club with Measure P. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayers says this is not the first time the owner of the property has purposely abandoned a golf course in San Diego County.
Overgrown plants, broken windows, and graffitied walls. This is the current scene at what was once Stone Ridge Country Club.
Right now it looks like trash, and I'm ashamed of it, to be honest. The current state is a fire hazard. We're getting, and it makes me very fearful, especially during this October time.
Measure P would put a maximum of 160 homes on the property in a development called The Farm. It would also include a minimum of 70.4 acres of permanent open space. The ballot measure asks Poway residents to approve the farm in the Poway specific plan. This plan was adopted by the Poway City Council in June, but a public vote is required to approve the development as it will change the zoning code for the property. This isn't the first time Poway voters have been asked to approve housing here. In 2017, they rejected Measure A, which called for more homes. But the developers say things are different this time.
Measure A came across and it had no real plan. It was just a zone change. So there wasn't a project associated with it. Measure P is very different in that it has unanimous approval and support from City Council. It has an associated specific plan, an environmental impact report, and a tentative map that are completely approved and in stone, so people know what they're voting for with Measure P.
But unanimous support from the City Council doesn't mean unanimous support from residents.
It's a worse deal for everyone who lives here. Many more cars, much more noise. We just feel it's not good for us.
Chris Prine of Preserve Poway says most of the farm's designated open space is not really usable.
All the open space is in parts that is useless from a recreation point of view. Very steep hills.
Stone Ridge is owned by Michael Schlesinger, who shut down the course after Measure A failed. He's known for using strong-arm tactics to aid his business. In 2014, he closed his golf course at the Escondido Country Club and had tons of chicken manure dumped onto the property after voters there rejected a proposed housing development on the land. Prine says the closure and decline of Stone Ridge is a similar pressure tactic.
If it is a fire hazard, the city of Poway needs to clean it up, but they are using this as a campaign issue. It's sort of like, vote for this measure, or we're going to, or you're in fire danger, and to me that it feels like blackmail. I don't know, maybe that's a strong word.
In 2017, Schlesinger and the Escondido City Council came to an agreement for a reduced number of homes on that property. Now the deserted country club in Poway faces a similar situation, but the farm's Aaron McKinley says it's an opportunity for residents.
This is their opportunity to keep it local. If it fails, then it will go back to being controlled by Michael Schlesinger.
Proposed amenities for the farm include parks, trails, gardens, event space, a cafe and butterfly vivarium, a community classroom, and a fitness club with courts and a swimming pool. And the developer says they would be available to all Poway residents. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Dozens of candidates in the city and county of San Diego are asking for your vote this year, but a number of them haven't always cast ballots themselves in past elections. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Trageser gives us a rundown of the worst offenders.
Using the searchable database at kpbs.org, you can find out what Democratic congressional candidate didn't cast a ballot for either Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders in 2016. The answer is Amar Campa-Najjar, who's running in the 50th Congressional District. Then there's Republican Jim DeBello, who's running in the 52nd. He didn't vote in the 2008 presidential primary, which John McCain ended up winning. And Georgette Gomez, running in the 53rd, didn't vote in the November 2000 election when the U.S. Supreme Court ended the Florida recount and George W. Bush beat Al Gore. She also skipped the 2013 special election when Kevin Faulconer was elected mayor. San Diego City Council candidates also missed big and small elections, from the 2012 presidential election to the 2008 primary when Barack Obama beat Hillary Clinton. For the full list of records and to search for specific candidates, go to kpbs.org/missed. Claire Trageser, KPBS News.
Prop 17 would grant parolees voting rights. Cal Matters political reporter Elizabeth Castillo explains what it means for California parolees who want to vote and those who may want to run for office.
16 states and the District of Columbia allow people to vote once they're released from prison. Vermont and Maine even let people vote from inside prison. But California not only bars state prisoners from casting ballots, it also prohibits roughly 50,000 parolees from voting. This election could change that.
Hi, I'm Cal Matters reporter Elizabeth Castillo, and I'm going to explain Prop 17 in under a minute.
Prop 17 would change the state constitution, allowing people on parole to vote. In California, people serving their sentences in county jails can already vote unless they're transferring to a state or federal prison or they're serving time for a parole violation. The proposition would also clear the way for parolees to run for office if they're registered to vote and haven't been convicted of perjury or bribery. Supporters say once people finish their term in prison, they should be encouraged to re-enter society, and granting parolees voting rights is one way to help people have a stake in their community. Opponents say parole is reserved for violent and serious criminals. Those who have been convicted of murder, rape, and other violent crimes should wait until after they finish parole and have proven they're rehabilitated before they get to vote again. So, vote yes if you think people who have served their prison sentence but are still on parole should get to vote. Vote no if you think people should wait until after they've completed their parole to be able to vote.
And a reminder to check out our KPBS voter guide. The online resource is customizable to the races on your ballot. You can find the link on our homepage at kpbs.org.
Our cooling trend is still on the way. Gradual cooling next couple of days, and then more significant cooling by the weekend. Our marine layer continues to deepen, so that means more in the way of night and morning low clouds and some areas of fog spreading inland through the inland valleys. Now, precipitation chances are non-zero as we take you into the weekend. There will be a system getting closer to our area, and that could spit out a couple of showers there from the mountains west through the valleys towards the coast. Not much, but there could be a few showers around. As we take a look at tonight, clouds rolling in, Oceanside, San Diego, 56 Oceanside, turning the numbers around in San Diego, 65. Borrego Springs, 64, and Campos down to 45. As we take a look at tomorrow's weather, well, really no big changes. The cooling continues to come into the coast, still very warm in the interior, and we're still dry, that's for sure. Take a look at those temperatures. 96 Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna's at 72, and Campos 86. Temperatures getting closer to average now around Escondido, Ramona, and El Cajon, and towards the coast. Same is true here. 74 San Diego, 73 in Oceanside. And on Thursday, the heat retreats. There'll be a surge of cooler air headed south into the Great Basin, but we'll just continue to see our cooling spreading inland. And as we take a look at our temperatures, we'll see evidence of that. Temperatures near average and a little bit cooler over the weekend. A lot of clouds around on Saturday with that shower chance. As we take you inland, temperatures dropping below average. Clouds Saturday, could there be the shower? And as we look into the mountains, temperatures drop in the 70s down to the 50s by Sunday. And in the deserts too, there's some cooling coming. Temperatures dropping below average, low 80s over the weekend. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Operation Masks for All has an ambitious goal, providing personal protective equipment for California's entire homeless population. Muslim Coalition for America is the team in charge of the initiative, and today they distributed reusable face masks at Chula Vista's Harborside Park. It is the first in a series of events being held throughout San Diego County.
Muslim Coalition for America announced its COVID-19 relief task force in June. So we've been up and down the Golden State. In San Diego County, we're partnered with the Task Force on the Homeless to try our best to provide face masks for the entire unsheltered homeless population of San Diego County.
And the group's goal is to give out 40,000 face masks across the county. A lot of talk has happened around the concept of herd immunity when it comes to the coronavirus. Countries like Sweden have taken that approach, but many experts say that strategy is simply too dangerous. Meredith Wood explains.
As the world waits for a COVID-19 vaccine, the term herd immunity has started to be thrown around more. But what is it? Herd immunity occurs when a virus is allowed to spread among a population freely.
It would mean that 60 to 70% of the population becomes infected. That's a large enough number that they essentially create a herd of protection around other people.
But here's the problem. So far, not even 10% of the U.S. population has been infected, but over 200,000 have died.
If you start to multiply that times 6 or 7, that's where you're starting to get into the 1.4 to 2 million number of people who would potentially die.
Then magnify that on a global scale. The head of the World Health Organization worries that could lead to more problems.
Allowing a dangerous virus that we don't fully understand to run free is simply unethical. It's not an option.
Dr. Anthony Fauci agrees.
There will be so many people in the community that you can't shelter, that you can't protect, who are going to get sick and get serious consequences. So this idea that we have the power to protect the vulnerable is total nonsense.
For today's Health Minute, I'm Meredith Wood.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, as Americans feel the pain, COVID relief still eludes lawmakers. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here is a recap of today's top story. San Diego County narrowly avoided a week in purple territory. The state moved down the county's adjusted case rate to meet the threshold for our current red tier. It would take 2 weeks of purple data to see indoor operations for some businesses close again. State officials also released guidance for theme parks. Larger parks like SeaWorld, Legoland, and Disneyland can only reopen in the least restrictive yellow tier. And here is a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. As we watch the coronavirus numbers climb, an analysis by our partners at iNewsSource finds the true death toll in San Diego may be much higher than we think. And on Midday Edition, our comprehensive election coverage continues. What voters need to know about local measures C and D. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.